Hello students, Teacher Sam here. Are you ready for another exciting lesson for today? If you are, then let's go! Before we start our lesson, I have a question first. What makes a story engaging? We often find ourselves captivated by stories that align with our interests, especially when we're drawn to their compelling plot lines. Can you guess our lesson for today? Impressive! We will discuss the elements of plot in a story. But before our lesson proper, let's have a game first. It's called Fact or Bluff. Say fact if the statement is true and bluff if it is not. I will give you 10 seconds to answer. The resolution is sometimes called the denouement. The answer is fact. Every story must have at least 3 characters in the exposition. The answer is bluff. The rising action builds tension and excitement by developing the conflict. The answer is fact. I think we've energized our brain already to take in new information. And now, let's read first our learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, 85% of the students will be able to identify the 5 elements of a plot, create a story map illustrating the elements of a plot and the story The Mats by Francisco Arcelana, and express their appreciation for how the plot structure contributes to the storytelling. The elements of a plot are essentially the building blocks of any story you've ever read, watched, or even heard about. Think of a plot as the blueprint of a story. Just like a building needs a solid foundation and structure, a story needs a plot to guide it. By understanding these elements, you'll be able to analyze stories better and even create your own gripping narratives. Now, what exactly is a plot? Simply put, it's the sequence of events in a story. It's like the roadmap that takes us from the beginning to the end of the narrative. Without a plot, a story would just be a random collection of events, and that wouldn't be very engaging, right? Here's why the plot is so important. First, it's what makes the story flow smoothly. Imagine watching a movie or reading a book where nothing connects. Confusing, right? It keeps readers or viewers hooked because they want to know what happens next. For those of you who love writing your own stories, understanding plot will help you structure them better. So in short, plot is the heart of a story. If you can master this, you can truly appreciate how stories are crafted. Let's talk about the first element, the exposition. Think of it as the starting point of a story. This is where the groundwork is laid. It introduces the characters, the setting, and any important background details. For example, in The Hunger Games, the exposition shows us Panem, a dystopian society, and introduces Katniss Everdeen, the main character. We also learn about the annual Hunger Games, where tributes from each district fight to the death. This setup is crucial because it helps us understand the stakes and prepares us for what's to come. When you're analyzing a story, ask yourself, who are the main characters? Where is the story taking place? What's the context or situation? The answer to these questions will always come from the exposition. Next up is the rising action. This is where things start to get exciting. The rising action is made up of events that build tension and develop the main conflict. It's like the story climbing a mountain. Each event pushes the characters higher toward the climax. In The Hunger Games, an example of rising action is when Katniss volunteers as tribute to save her sister Prim. This moment immediately raises the stakes. Then as she trains, makes alliances, and faces challenges in the capital, the tension keeps growing. Here's a question to think about. Why do you think the rising action is so long compared to other parts of the story? It's because this is where the writer builds suspense, develops characters, and keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's the part that makes you ask, what will happen next? Now we're at the climax, the moment we've all been waiting for. The climax is the turning point of the story, the part where the main conflict reaches its peak. This is often the most intense, dramatic, or emotional moment. In The Hunger Games, the climax happens during the final battle in the arena. All the tension that's been building up throughout the story explodes here. Will Katniss survive? Will she find a way to outsmart the capital? The climax is important because it changes the direction of the story. After this point, the conflict starts to resolve and we begin moving toward the ending. Think of it as the highest point in that mountain we're climbing. Everything before it leads up to this, and everything after starts coming down. Now let's look at the falling action. The falling action happens right after the climax. It shows the immediate consequences of what just happened. For example, in The Hunger Games, these includes the moments after Katniss and Peeta outsmart the capital by threatening to eat the poisonous berries. It's a quieter part of the story, but it's important because it helps us process the events of the climax. And finally, here comes the resolution, which is the end of the story. This is where everything wraps up, loose ends are tied, and conflicts are resolved. In The Hunger Games, the resolution shows Katniss and Peeta's victory and their return home. Even though they've survived, we're left with hints that bigger challenges lie ahead. These elements give readers or viewers closure, which is so important. Without a proper resolution, a story can feel incomplete or unsatisfying. So, to wrap it all up, the elements of a plot work together to create a compelling story. From the exposition, each step serves a purpose. The next time you read a book or watch a movie, try to identify these elements. And if you're writing your own story, use this as your guide to create something amazing. After learning about the 5 elements of a plot, let's now proceed to our assessment to assess your knowledge and apply it through an activity. In Activity 1, identify the elements of a plot: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution by making a creative story map based on the short story The Mats by Francisco Arcelana. Write it in a short bond paper. Ensure your story map is clear, concise, and visually organized. In the Activity 2, at the back of your story map, answer the following question in 3 to 5 sentences. How does the plot structure contribute to the effectiveness of storytelling? If you want to know more about our lesson, here is our references. And that's the end of our lesson. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. Let us have a great school year together.